Hello, bonjour et bienvenue. My name is Kelly and I'm a teaching fellow in the French department at Warwick. This presentation is going to explain some of the basics about studying French in the School of Modern Languages and Cultures at Warwick and give you a flavor of what French language at university might involve. There will be an interactive element, so you might want to have a pen and a paper ready. We offer language pathways from beginner's level upwards. If you have studied French at A level, you can take the language further on one of our degrees, or you can study French from scratch. The ethos of the French program, interactive learning experience that enables you to build your fluency in French through writing, speaking, translating, and grammar practice. In partnership with your tutors, you will use a wide range of material to develop your linguistic ability, such as online resources, printed and visual media, TV and audio materials. We'll also support your learning with our peer-to-peer mentoring program and our first-year buddy scheme. You will have access to all the resources you need in our virtual learning environment through the dedicated space for language students in the SMLC and through the library. I'm going to hand over to some of my colleagues now who will present the different pathways and give you a flavor of what learning French might be like.
Bonjour, my name is Claude and I am an associate professor at the Language Center, part of the School of Modern Languages and Cultures. I teach French from beginners to advanced levels. Let's have a look at your options if you are a beginner or intermediate level student. You'll be enrolled on our accelerated pathways, which allows you to progress quickly to an advanced level. Classes are taught in French, mostly by first language speakers, though with occasional use of English for explanations of grammar. If you've never studied French, you'll start with our French Beginners Accelerated module. If you have a GCSE or equivalent in French, you'll be eligible for our French Intermediate Accelerated module. The Beginners module has an exit level above A level at the end of your studies. The Intermediate module will take you well above that. The levels you can see are references to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It is an international standard for describing language ability. It describes language ability on a 6-point scale from A1 for beginners up to C2 for those who have mastered the language. On our accelerated pathway, you will learn to communicate effectively and fluently in French. You will work on developing your skills in listening and reading comprehension, on speaking and writing the language. You will work on grammar and on developing your cultural understanding of France and the French-speaking world. French is spoken in many countries. You will develop intercultural awareness, that is, understanding differences and similarities between your culture and the French culture. Our classes are very interactive, with a lot of pair and group work, a lot of discussions and debates. You will also take part in our virtual exchange with students from University Clermont-Auvergne. You will work on a variety of group and independent projects where you will be encouraged to think creatively and critically to solve problems. Examples of projects: organizing an art exhibition, creating a brochure to advertise Warwick to foreign students, becoming a greeter, and preparing a tour of your city town for French-speaking tourists, or organizing a campaign to save our planet. In their feedback, our students comment that our classes are interactive, interesting, and fun.
Hi, I'm Dr. Will Amos, and I'm an assistant professor of French, specialising in translation and transcultural studies and sociolinguistics. So the aim of our post-A-level language programme is to increase your level of sophistication, your range of expression, and your awareness of ways in which French is constructed and used. We work on your linguistic skills through translating, and that's both into and out of French, writing, grammar, and speaking and listening. And in your first year, you're going to have 4 hours per week of language classes, and all of these are going to be taught in French. And in the case of oral classes, these are taken by a first language French speaker. Your tutors will also help you to tailor your own learning through guided self-study, and will train you to use the language learning software that will support your learning in class. The purpose of this video, though, is to give an idea of what this will be like in practice. So I'm going to give you a brief example of how some of these elements fit together. What I'd like to focus on now is how we'd use translation to develop your linguistic range and awareness of how language is used in context. And for this, let's start by thinking about cake. So, how do you say cake in French? Obviously, it's le gâteau in the singular, and in plural, les gâteaux. But what happens to that English word when you use it in certain expressions in French? For instance, in English, we sometimes say that something that's selling quickly is selling like hot cakes. This is an example of what's known as an idiom or an idiomatic expression, an expression that uses figurative language in a way that's often difficult to translate and cannot be translated word for word literally. You might want to stop the presentation at this point and think about some other expressions that you know in English that use the word cake. What other ones can you come up with, and how might they differ when we translate them into French? Here are a couple of other expressions that I thought of. That takes the cake, sort of like that takes the biscuit. You can't have your cake and eat it, meaning slightly different things, of course still involving the key word of cake here. So our question is, how are we going to translate these expressions into French? Again, perhaps pause again and jot down some of your own ideas for these. Well, how about cela se vend comme des petits pains? It's like it's selling like little breads, like little bread rolls. We've also got ça c'est le bouquet, or perhaps le bouquet final, literally the final bouquet of flowers. And at the bottom there, on ne peut pas avoir le beurre et l'argent du beurre, literally meaning you can't both have butter and also the money set aside for the butter. So, the sort of translation of cake in these contexts isn't necessarily translated each time as gâteau, because it represents an idea that finds different equivalences with bread rolls, bunches of flowers, butter, and even money. What idiomatic expressions help to illustrate then is that translation has its basis in units of meaning or semantic strings, not just in what we think we know as words. And this is why literal translation will only take you so far, and real fluency depends on an awareness of how language is used in context. Let's look at something else now, and perhaps how this skill might be applied in the professional world. Here, through a translation of a marketing slogan from French into English. Now, the supermarket chain Monoprix has a history of using wordplay in its product packaging. Here, Papy va être gâté on a sponge cake for the slightly dubious commercial holiday Fête des Grands-Pères, or Grandfather's Day, celebrated for at least a decade in France in the month of October. Whatever we think about that particular holiday, here we can see that we're mixing papy gâteau, standard French for a grandfather who spoils his grandchildren, and gâter, which is the standard French verb to spoil, and taking advantage of the similarities within both terms with the word gâteau for cake. So, translating this marketing slogan too literally would be inadequate. Something like, cakey granddad's going to be spoiled. But when I put this through machine translation, I got cupcake grandpa's going to be spoiled. So, given that this is an advertising slogan, we need to think about how it appeals to the supermarket's target audience, as well as how we can improve on the language. And understanding the words on the packet isn't really enough. We also need to account for the communicative functions of different linguistic elements within the text. So, given that the pun and its relation to the product is key, we might draw on the kinds of expressions that we just looked at. Something like, Grandpa, you really take the cake? Or even perhaps, Grandad finally gets his cake and eats it. Much better. Can you think of any other translations that would work here, based on your English brainstorming of expressions? Feel free to stop the presentation for a minute to come up with some suggestions of your own. So this is just one very brief illustration of how we would help you to develop your language skills at Warwick, regardless of what level you come in with. And now it's back to Kelly, who will tell you more about how you can develop your language skills outside of classes and as part of the year abroad.
There are lots of other ways you can practice your French more informally too. The department runs a peer-to-peer mentoring scheme involving students in more advanced years and a first-year grammar buddy scheme. We also have an online buddy scheme involving French university students and a language exchange program with senior citizens in France. Finally, we have a French drama club, a conversation club, a reading club, and the Choix Goncourt UK. We continuously review, adapt, and develop opportunities for you to practice and use French. As part of the year abroad, you would also have the option to spend some time working or studying in France or an approved francophone country, such as Quebec, Caribbean, Réunion, Belgium, or Switzerland. Students can choose to work or study on their year abroad, or even to combine the two. There is a lot of flexibility here in how you spend your year abroad. We give you information about the options available to you before you go, and guide you in making decisions about what best suits you. Students currently do either language assistantships run by the British Council, such as a job teaching English in a French-speaking school, a study placement at a French-speaking university in France, Belgium, or the Caribbean, or they organized independent work or other study placements. In the past, we have had students study at a theatre school in Paris, take art history at the Louvre, or complete work placements in French law firms, in fashion houses like Christian Dior, or spend time subtitling French language films. I am part of the Year Abroad team. We prepare students before they go abroad and support them while they are away. Students abroad remain in regular contact with us and with their personal tutor. What are the language outcomes of the Year Abroad? This time spent abroad gives students the opportunity to acquire a thorough knowledge and understanding of French language and culture. Whatever language level students come with, we find that time spent abroad really accelerates students' linguistic skills and intercultural awareness. They enter final year more confident in their spoken and written French. I hope that's given you a flavor of what our French language program can offer. Do take a look at our other presentation on the modules that you can study alongside French language. We look forward to meeting you soon. Merci et à bientôt!